What's happening, guys? Today I wanted to make a really quick video helping you put together a program. So these are some things you think about when you're programming for athletes. I'm going to run through it very fast to try and not make this a 10-15 minute long video. So the first thing I want to talk about is functional movement hierarchy, which means what is the most important thing for athletes. So we have this pyramid here, and we're going to talk about the base of the pyramid. It's the most important things. We've got the row, we've got the hinge, and then we've got anti-movement. All right, so they are the foundation. The next thing we have is the horizontal push, the squat, and the vertical pull. So to me, those main six are the most important that you must have in your program. You probably want a strong, like a compound lift, and maybe even a secondary or a tertiary lift with those movements. Next, we move into the more unimportant movements, is the vertical push and the lunge. And although the lunge is kind of a variation of the squat technically, it does take into account a little bit of balance and being in a split stance, which is important for sports, all right? And then the last thing at top is specialization. So depending on the sport, if they have a particular need, you'd probably want to include that in too. So that just depends on the sport they play or the style they play for. So that is our hierarchy. That's what we need to keep in mind. So over here, I've gone through all these and just listed some examples of movements you can do. Now keep in mind that I'm a little bit biased towards using really simple free weights. I like dumbbells, kettlebells, medicine balls. Now I usually work with my athlete groups, not in a gym. I'm usually working with them in an outdoor setting. So that's just why I personally am biased to free weights over machines. Of course, if you have 20 athletes, you're not going to be able to go into a gym and use the leg press machine or the shoulder press machine. You're probably going to even struggle to get them all in on the squat rack if you have those big numbers. All right, so what we're going to look at is just one single program, and you might be progressing from endurance to power. So I like to work programs sometimes like this, especially for the big groups, is week 1 and week 2, you want to work on that muscular endurance. So you're working for extended period of time, you're building that base. Week 3 and week 4, you're moving towards strength. So you're getting those athletes stronger. You're looking at that 4 to 12 rep range, somewhere in there. And then of course, power. So week 5 and 6, you're working on being powerful. You're talking about 1, 2, 3 reps, all right? Moving weights fast or generating a lot of force in a short period of time. So let's go through all these movements really quick, and I'm going to give you an example of how we progress those movements. So we're talking about the row first. So something you can start off with your muscular endurance is a dumbbell bent over row, all right? Nice and simple, really easy to teach. Of course, you probably know all the training cues about keeping a natural spine, all right? You can progress that the next week to a single arm kettlebell row. You can still, of course, use a dumbbell, but I want you to start using heavier weights, all right? So you can include some of the things like using a pause at the bottom and then moving the weight fast, however you want to do it, but you're progressing from a 2-arm where you're going higher reps to a unilateral single arm going a bit heavier. And then the power week, you can progress that to tug of war. So that's something I really like to do with my athletes, because when it comes to a row, unless you're using a big heavy barbell, which then has issues for your technique, because your technique needs to be spot on when you start going 2, 3, 4 rep max. Tug of war, they can go all out for 8 to 10 seconds, and when they're competing against someone else, they are going to go absolutely 100%. All right, you can sit them opposite one another and have them row. Yes, they might use their core and their legs, but you're really getting that row. Next, we're going to go into a hinge. So a great one I like to use is a kettlebell swing for the hinge. All right, then we can progress that to an RDL, or you might just go heavy with the kettlebell swings, depending on what you want to do. And then I like to progress that to a med ball overhead toss. And this is one of my favorite movements for power, because you don't really have to go heavy with the weights, and it's a really great way to get explosive movements. So they got the med ball. Personally, I like to use 3, 4, maybe 5 kilos. They go down and they go into that explosive triple extension. You can get them to throw the ball as high as possible. You can get them to throw the ball as far as possible over their back. You can tweak it however you want, all right? That's for a hinge. Next is anti-movement, which is a little bit tricky. it's a lot of different things, but for the most part, think of it as carrying or core movements. So you might be doing something like a suitcase carry or a farmer's carry. Could be something simple as a plank. Another good one is mountain climbers. Is any time your body has to stabilize itself. Now, it could be moving, it could be stationary, but to start out, I really like simple things: planks, mountain climbers, suitcase carry. Next, as we progress that, a pull-off press. So although we're moving, we've got the band connected to something or to another athlete, and we're pressing out, but the band is pulling us to the side, so we have to stabilize and generate that anti-rotation. All right, next we can progress that for power into a med ball split stance slam. So you were in a split stance, your med ball slamming over. So as you're throwing the ball, it wants to throw your body all over the place. You're moving explosively, and you're explosively stabilizing yourself. Another good one for that is a med ball side toss. So you get the med ball, rotate, throw it into the wall. Yes, it is rotation, but there is a degree of stability within that, especially if you're standing. Next one, rolling through horizontal push. All right, keep it simple. Go something like push-ups. If they have to do push-ups on their knees, they can do that too. I simply like to progress that with just a harder variation of push-ups. You know, you might go from wide grip and then progress it to close grip. It just depends on how strong your athletes are, whether they can do 3 push-ups or 30 push-ups. And then we progress that to a med ball chest pass. All right, we're being powerful, being explosive. Next thing is a squat. All right, simple bodyweight squats. You can progress that into strength by going a goblet squat. So you can go relatively heavy with that as long as they're keeping their technique. And then you progress that into a squat jump or maybe even box jumps. Next, we've got the vertical pull. This one gets a little bit tricky because you need a little bit of equipment. So the most common one we can do is like a lat pull down. All right, but then you're gonna need a lat pull down machine. But if you can't do that, you can always strap a band to something and you can do band pull downs. Then we want to progress to assisted pull-ups or assisted chin-ups. Of course, if your athletes can do pull-ups and chin-ups, that is awesome. Make them do that. If they can do like 20 pull-ups, then you just add some weight so you get them into that strength rep range. And the last one to progress that into power is ball slams. And although the ball needs to be picked up, what you want you cue your athlete to do is get it above their head and slam it down as hard as they can. If you really talk about slamming the ball as hard and as fast as they can, then they're pulling down to slam that ball. So easy up, violent on the way down. All right, that's how I like to cue my athletes. Next one is the vertical push. All right, so these ones are becoming less and less important. Okay, dumbbell overhead press. All right, we can rep that out, get that burn. Heavy push press. So this one you can do single arm, you can do 2 arms, but I want you to start going heavier with the weights so the athletes have to bend at the hip and knee to assist with that press. We're really just going heavier. And then a great power movement is med ball vertical toss. So they got the med ball, it's here, they're throwing it up and slightly in front, right? If they throw it straight up, there's a chance it comes straight back down on their head, which is not safe. So up and slightly forward, and they're throwing that ball as high as they can. Again, that's a really easy one to cue because they're gonna move as fast and explosively as possible, rather than trying to cue them with a heavy dumbbell, trying to tell them to push it up fast. All right, last one for lunges. All right, obviously, just do lunges. We can progress that to weighted lunges. We can do the split squat, which is a great way to progress it, a little bit harder than doing a lunge. And then progressing that to power plyo lunges, where you're going lunge, jumping up, and switching stance. All right, so this is a whole lot of writing, but it's just an example of how we can progress from muscular endurance to strength to power, and we're taking into account all these functional movement hierarchies. Now, you couldn't do all of this in one workout. You might pick 1, 2, 3, do that in a workout, 1, 2, 3, do that in a different workout. All right, so it might be 3 workouts, and this is how you progress it over 6 weeks. So hopefully this video was helpful in some way in giving you some ideas of what you need to be doing with your athletes right? This is a great kind of baseline to go from. Of course, you can start to chop and change and put in your own movements. And this is a really great example of how you can train multiple athletes. If you've got a group of 10, 15, 20 people, you can't get in the gym and do all those cool exercises and use all those machines. These are some great functional movement exercises with minimal equipment.